Hello, dear students of class 9. This is Priyanka Upadhyay, your physics teacher, and today in this video we are going to learn a third chapter, that is laws of motion. So in this video we will be studying about the Newton's first law of motion and inertia. Okay, so what does the Newton's first law of motion states? Before going to Newton's first law of motion, we will study about inertia. Inertia is the natural tendency of objects to remain in a state of rest or in a uniform motion. Okay, see here. If a body is at rest, it remains at rest unless a force is applied on it. And if a body is moving, it will continue to move with the same speed in the same direction unless and until force is applied on it. So Newton put the above observations in the form of law, which is called Newton's first law of motion. So the Newton's first law of motion states that if a body is in a state of rest, it will remain in the state of rest. And if it is in the state of motion, it will remain moving in the same direction with the same speed unless and until an external force applied on it. So this Newton's law of first law of motion can be understood by two parts. First one is definition of inertia and second one is definition of force. So when we go to the definition of inertia, so what does it state? Actually, Newton's first law gives the definition of inertia. So according to which an object cannot change its state by itself. An object cannot change its state by itself. There should be a force acting on it. If the object is in the state of rest, it will remain in the state of rest, and if it is moving in some direction, it will continue to move with the same speed in the same direction unless and until there is an external force acting on it. So if the body is moving, it should continue in the state of motion itself. Okay, so when the force acts on the body, then only the body comes to rest. In the example of rolling of a ball, we can see that the ball will roll continuously, but it comes to rest. Why it comes to rest? Because there is a force acting on it. Which force? That is frictional force. Otherwise, you can see if a book is kept on a table, it will be on the table itself. So unless and until you apply force and displace it, it will not move. So basically, inertia is the property of an object by virtue of which it tends to retain its state of rest or of motion. Okay, so it is the inherent property of each object. So this is about inertia. So in inertia, it states that inertia, a body, if the body is at rest, it will continue in rest itself. If the body is in uniform motion, then the body will continue to be in the uniform motion itself, unless and until there is an external force acting on it. So, as we have said, this first law can be understood by two parts, and the second part is it can be understood by the definition of force. See here, the second part of Newton's law defines force, according to which force is the external cause which can move a stationary object or which can change the state of motion of a moving object. So while studying force, we have studied about the effects of force. So what is the definition of force? Force is a cause. Force is a cause. What does it do? Either it changes the shape or size of the object, or it changes the state of rest or of motion of a object. A book lying on a table gets displaced from its place when it is pushed. A moving bicycle stops when a retarding force is applied by the brakes on its wheel. The force is actually defined as it is the external cause which tends to change the state of rest or the state of motion of a object. So this is about inertia and force. Okay, so here we can see that force is the external cause which changes the state of rest or of motion of an object. So this force is a vector quantity. The sum of two equal and opposite forces is 0. See here, the sum of two equal and opposite forces is 0. Two forces are equal, but if they are acting in the opposite direction, then the sum will become 0. A body acted upon by several forces can also have the resultant net force on it equal to 0. It means consider object and apply same force from all the sides. What happens? The body will not move. It means the resultant net force on the body is 0. So now, okay, just a minute. Okay. So now we will study about the relationship between inertia and mass. What happens to inertia when the mass of the body increases or it decreases? See here, a body at rest continues to be at rest and a body in motion continues to be in motion. This property of a body is called its inertia. The inertia of a body is measured by the magnitude of force required to change the state of the body, and the force required to change the state of a heavier body is more than the force required to change the state of a lighter body. This is because mass. See here, consider two objects, one a ball, one is ball and another one is truck. Both are moving with same velocity, but to stop the ball we need small amount of force, and to stop the truck we need large amount of force. So it means inertia increases as the mass increases. So this is because the mass of the heavier body is more than the mass of the lighter body. So the mass of a body is a measure of its inertia. As the mass increases, inertia increases. As the mass decreases, inertia decreases. So one more example, we can consider the same thing, ball and truck. So both are at rest. So now I want to change the state from rest to motion. So even if I apply little amount of force, the ball will come into motion. But what happens to the truck? It will not come to motion. It will not come to the state of motion just by the application of small force. It means the mass is more. That is the reason inertia is also more. Okay. See here. So now we will study about inertia of rest and inertia of motion. So what is mean by inertia of rest? See, if a body is at rest, it will remain at rest unless an external force is applied to change its state of rest. This property of a body is known as inertia of rest. So the examples of inertia of rest are when the train suddenly starts moving forward, the passengers standing in the train tend to fall backward. See here, in the first case, what happens before the train starts, what happens? Person will be standing in the train and he will be at rest. He will be at rest initially. So when train suddenly starts, what happens? The body changes its state from rest to motion, but he tends to fall backward because part of his body which is not in contact with the train is try to gain its original position, that is rest position. So that is the reason we tend to fall backward when vehicles start suddenly. Second one, when a hanging carpet is beaten with a stick, the dust particles start falling out of it. So in the second example, what happens when you beat a carpet, the carpet moves from its position. It goes to it goes back. In that case, the dust particles from the carpet, what they do? They remain in rest. So as the carpet moves back, the dust particles fall down. Third one, on shaking the branches of a tree, the fruits fall down. Here also the same technique. The fruits will be at rest, and what happens? The tree will be in motion. When you shake the branches of a tree, what happens? Force is applied only on the branches. So in this case, fruit is at rest. So when there is a sudden jerk from the branch, what happens? Branch move, but fruit wants to stay at rest. That is the reason it cuts and it falls down. Fourth one, on striking the coin at the bottom of a pile of carom coins with the striker, the lowest coin only moves away, while the rest of the pile remains intact. So in this case, what happens when you strike, okay, pile of carom coins, so pillar of carom coin, in that case, what happens? You are applying force on the lowest coin itself. That is the reason only the lowest coin moves and other will remain at rest itself. When a smooth card placed over a mouth of tumbler is flicked sharply in the horizontal direction, the card flies away, but the coin kept over the card falls into the tumbler because the coin will be at rest. Uh, flicking the Only we are flicking the card. So that is the reason card moves and coin will be at rest. So now when the card moves away, in that case coin falls down. When a corridor train suddenly starts, the sliding doors of some compartment may open. It is due to initially the corridor trains, what happens when the train starts? Okay, sliding doors suddenly they open. It is because so they want to be at rest itself. That is the reason they want to retain their original position. Okay, so this is about inertia of rest. So now we will study about inertia of motion. Okay, so what do we mean by inertia of motion? A body in state of motion continues to be in the state of motion with the same speed in the same direction. Okay, in the same direction in a straight line unless an external force is applied on it to change its state. This property of a body is called inertia of motion. Inertia of motion. So please make a change here. It should be inertia of motion. It should be, please make a change. So it should be inertia of motion. Okay. So here we will see the examples of inertia of motion. So here what happens? The cyclist riding along a level road does not come to rest after he stop pedaling. Okay, after he stop pedaling, he will even after he stop riding. So what happens? He will not come to rest because some amount of force motion is given to the body, and suddenly the body cannot come in the state of rest. That is the reason even after uh, stopping the pedaling, what happens? He moves for some distance. Second one, when passenger jumps out of a moving train, he falls down. So what happens when you jump out of a moving train? Your body will be in motion. Your body will be in motion. And when you suddenly try to jump out, what happens? Your body cannot come to rest immediately. That is the reason your body should move through some distance with the train. But here it is not happening. So when passenger jumps out suddenly, he falls down. When a running car stops suddenly, the passenger tend to lean forward. So imagine that you are moving in a car. You are moving in a car, your body is in the state of motion, and suddenly the brakes are applied in the car and you will come to rest. So your body will come to rest. So in this case, what happens? Your body was in motion, suddenly the brakes have been applied, and your body will not come to rest immediately. Okay, it will not come to rest immediately. So it tries to be in the state of motion. That is the reason it leans front. It leans forward. Okay. So the fourth example is an athlete often runs before taking a long jump. An athlete often runs before taking a long jump. Why do athletes take long jump before they run? It is because here, sorry, they take run before long jump. Um, it is because when they run for some time, when they run, what happens? The body will come in motion. When the body is coming in motion, it will help him to jump for a long distance. Okay, so that is the reason they run. It means the body will be in motion, so it will continue in motion. Okay, so here inertia of motion is used. Fifth one, a ball thrown vertically upward by a person in a moving train come back to his hand. See here, the reason is that at a moment when the ball was thrown, it was in motion along with the person and the train. It remains in the same state of forward motion even during the time the ball remains in air. It will also be in the forward motion. The person, the inside air, and the ball all move ahead by the same distance. They all move ahead by the same distance due to inertia of motion. So the ball falls back in into his palm. Okay, students, now we will study about the third part from this chapter, that is the linear momentum and Newton's second law of motion. Okay, the linear momentum and Newton's second law of motion. So in the beginning, we will study that what is linear momentum. See here. It's a common experience that if two bodies of different masses are moving with the same velocity and they are brought to rest in the same time, so the force needed to stop the heavier body is more and the force needed to stop the lighter body is less. Similarly, if two bodies of the same mass, if they are moving with different velocity, then the force needed to stop the body, the body which is moving fast will be more than the body which is moving slow. So, the force needed to stop a moving body in definite time, it is dependent on mass of the body as well as its velocity. Okay, so this is known as linear momentum. See, this force needed to stop a moving body in given time is dependent both on mass and velocity. It is dependent on mass as well as velocity. So, which is called linear momentum of the moving body. See, linear momentum of a body is the product of its mass and velocity. Here you can see the definition. The momentum of a body is the product of its mass and velocity. So how do we write this one? Momentum is equal to mass into velocity. This momentum is a vector quantity because there is velocity. Because there is velocity here. So this velocity is a vector quantity, therefore momentum is vector quantity. So what is the SI unit of linear momentum? See, the SI unit of mass is kg, the SI unit of mass is kg, and SI unit of velocity is meter per second. Therefore, the SI unit of momentum is kilogram meter per second or kg meter per second. Okay, so the CGS unit of mass is gram and CGS unit of velocity is centimeter per second. Therefore, the CGS unit of momentum is gram centimeter per second. So now we will study about, okay, so now we will study about the change in momentum. See here, change in momentum. Change in momentum. If there is a change in the momentum, it means there should be a change in the mass or there should be a change in the velocity. This symbol delta here, the symbol delta indicates the small change in that quantity. The change in product MV, the change in product MV, mass and velocity, can be either due to change in the mass or it may be due to change in the velocity. If the mass changes, then linear momentum changes. If the velocity changes, then the linear momentum changes. So, for instant, we will consider that the mass will remain constant. So in this case, the change in momentum is due to change in the velocity itself. The change in the momentum is due to change in the velocity itself. So we can write it as delta P is equal to delta into bracket M into V. That is, small change in the linear momentum is equal to small change in mass and velocity. So here what we have considered constant, here mass is constant. So then in this case, mass will remain as it is. So only there will be a change in the velocity v alone. See here, in case of atomic particles, what happens is particles which are moving with the velocity, okay, moving with the velocity of light, it was observed that the mass of the particle does not remain constant but increases with increase in the velocity. If the particles are moving with the velocity of light, then what happens? Their mass will increase with the increase in the velocity. So this is about change in the momentum. So next we will study about rate of change of momentum. Here, when a force is applied on a moving body, its velocity changes. Due to change in the velocity of a body, its momentum also changes. Here, when force is applied on the body, what happens? Velocity changes. Either the velocity increases or the velocity decreases. So due to this change in the velocity of the body, momentum also changes. Momentum also changes. See here. So if we apply force F on a body of mass m for time t. Here, consider if an object of mass m is moving along a straight line with its initial velocity u and is accelerated to velocity v in time t by the application of force F. It means you are applying force on the body. Initially it was at rest and now after the application of force, it is moving with the velocity v. So initial momentum of the body is given by, initially it was having the velocity u. Okay, so now we can write the initial momentum. Therefore, the initial momentum P1 is equal to m into u. Next, final momentum. So when the velocity changes, final velocity will become v. So in this case, P2 is equal to m into v. So therefore, change in the momentum. We can write change in the momentum. So it will be P2 minus P1 is equal to mv minus mu. If you take m as common, so what remains in bracket is v minus u. So if we consider rate of change of momentum, it means what does it mean, rate of change of momentum? It means momentum is changing per unit time. Momentum is changing per unit time. So we can say that rate of change of momentum is m into v minus u divided by t. It means per unit time the momentum is changing, or we can say that applied force F is directly proportional to m into v minus u divided by t. Okay, so this m into v minus u divided by t is also proportional to applied force. Then in this case, what happens? In this case, what happens? So F will become equal to, see here, this v minus u divided by t we have studied in the second chapter. This v minus u divided by t is rate of change of velocity. Rate of change of velocity is nothing but acceleration. Okay, so in this case, can I write F is proportional to m into a, and I can write it as F is equal to kma, where k is the constant of proportionality, or even we can write it as F is equal to ma. And the SI unit of mass is kg and acceleration is meter per second square. So the unit of force is what? Kg meter per second square, or the unit of force is Newton. Usually when we write the unit for force, we write in terms of Newton itself. So this is about rate of change of momentum. Okay. So next we have, just a minute. Okay. So next we have Newton's law of motion. Newton's law of motion. So in this case, see, Newton's first law of motion defines the force only qualitatively. A force is that physical cause which changes the state of motion of a body when it is applied on it. It means the force produces acceleration in the body. Force produces acceleration in the body. That is, the force is the cause of acceleration. So now we shall see that Newton's second law of motion gives the qualitative value of force. That is, it relates force to the measurable quantities like acceleration and mass. Here, it is a common experience that if we push a tennis ball gently, small acceleration is produced and it acquires small velocity in small time. But if the same tennis ball is pushed hard, what happens? Large acceleration is produced, so it acquires large velocity in the same time. Therefore, the magnitude of two forces can be compared by measuring the acceleration produced in the body. By measuring the acceleration produced in the body. Okay. So if F1 produces acceleration of, for example, 5 meter per second square, and F2 produces acceleration of 10 meter per second square on the same body, then magnitude of force F2 is 2 times the magnitude of force F1. It means the magnitude of force F2 is greater than the magnitude of force F1. Therefore, experimentally, Newton found that the acceleration produced in a body is directly proportional to the applied force. Applied force. Similarly, in the second condition, what did he do? What we will do? We will try to produce same change in the velocity in same time. Okay, in a football and tennis ball. Initially, both are as rest. One we have taken football and one we have taken tennis ball. Now both are having different masses, but what we will do? We will try to produce same velocity in the body. So here we will apply some force on the body. Now both bodies acquire same velocity. It means we are applying large force on the football and small force on the tennis ball. So here it indicates that the force needed to produce same acceleration in different body is proportional to their masses. If the mass is more, then the force needed to produce the acceleration in the body will also be more. If mass is less, then the force needed to produce the acceleration in a body is also less. Okay, So on basis of these experiments, Newton concluded that, here you can see, the acceleration produced in a body of given mass is directly proportional to the force applied on it. That is, acceleration is directly proportional to force where mass remains constant. So here he plotted graph for acceleration against force. So this will be a straight line as it is shown in this figure. So now, what he concluded, secondly, he said that the force needed to produce a given acceleration in a body is directly proportional to the mass of the body. That is, F is directly proportional to M. Okay, and if the acceleration remains same. So here, this graph indicates the force against mass. It is also a straight line. So if we combine this equation, acceleration is proportional to force and force is proportional to mass. So by combining these two, can we say that force is proportional to m into a? Yes, definitely we can say that force is proportional to m into a. So this force is equal to kma, where k is the constant. Unit of force is so chosen that k becomes 1. So when k will become 1, when m will become 1 and acceleration will become 1. So therefore, the amount of force is taken as 1 unit of force, which when applied on a body of unit mass produces unit acceleration in the body. Produces unit acceleration in the body. Therefore, we can write that force force is equal to mass into acceleration, and this is the mathematical expression for Newton's second law of motion. Newton's second law of motion. So now we will discuss about CGS and SI units of force. So SI unit of force. Here, the SI unit of force is Newton. SI unit of force is Newton. So 1 Newton is the force which when acts on a body of mass 1 kg. So we will consider 1 kg of mass and we will produce 1 meter per second square acceleration. Okay, then the force will become equal to 1 Newton. 1 Newton. So 1 Newton is equal to 1 kg into 1 meter per second square. So the standard symbol of Newton, while writing Newton, we will write N in small case, but while writing only symbol N, we will write capital N. So in CGS system, the unit of force is dyne. The CGS system unit of force is dyne. So 1 dyne is the force which when acts on a body of mass 1 gram produces an acceleration of 1 centimeter per second square. See, in CGS unit, what is the CGS unit of force? It is dyne. So how will we define? There is 1 gram of mass. So what happens in 1 gram of in the mass in the body of mass which is having 1 gram, we are producing the acceleration 1 centimeter per second square. So it will be equal to the force 1 dyne. Okay, so this is about the CGS and SI unit of force. So next we have relationship between Newton and dyne. Here, 1 Newton is equal to, we know that it is 1 kg into 1 meter per second square. Here you can observe 1 kg into 1, just a minute. So it is, okay, it is 1 kg into 1 meter per second square. Therefore, 1 kg we know that it is equal to 1000 grams and 1 meter per second square is equal to 100 centimeter per second square. So 1000 is here and 100 is here. So I can write as 10 raised to 5 gram into centimeter per second square. Therefore, 1 Newton will be equal to 10 raised to 5 dyne. 1 Newton is equal to 10 raised to 5 dyne. Okay, so now we will study about the Newton's second law of motion in terms of rate of change of momentum. So in the earlier case, we have studied about rate of change of momentum. Okay, so we will use the same thing here. So when force is applied on a body, it produces acceleration in the body. So due to which what happens, velocity and momentum of the body changes. So we have studied about the equation 3.4, that is nothing but rate of change of momentum is equal to product of mass and acceleration, that is uh, d delta p. Okay, delta p is equal to f into m into a. So here we can take that delta p divided by delta t. Delta p divided by delta t, this is rate of change of momentum, is equal to mass into acceleration, where mass remains constant. So from this 3.8 equation, 3.8 equation, that is mathematical form of Newton's second law, we can write that F is equal to m into a. So when these two are equal, delta p by delta t is equal to ma and F is equal to ma. So in general, can we write F is equal to delta p divided by delta t? Yes, we can write F is equal to delta p divided by delta t. So therefore, F is equal to delta p. What is this p means? It means linear momentum, that is m into v. So it is m into delta v, that is change in the momentum. We have studied this one. So m into delta v divided by delta t. So here delta v divided by delta t, rate of change of velocity, it is nothing but acceleration. So Newton's second law of motion can be stated in terms of rate of change in momentum as follows. See here, according to Newton's second law of motion, the rate of change of momentum of a body is directly proportional to the force applied on it, and the change in the momentum takes place in the direction in which the force is applied. See here, rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force, and the change in the momentum of a body takes place in the direction of applied force. So this is about Newton's second law of motion. So what we will do, we will go through the examples of Newton's second law of motion. Okay, just a minute. Okay. So while catching a ball, cricketer withdraws his hand along with the ball. So while catching ball, cricketer, what does he do? He withdraws his hands along with the ball because he is reducing the momentum of the body. When the momentum of the ball is reduced, what happens? Force will also be reduced. Force will also be reduced. Second one, athletes often land on sand after taking a high jump. See here, when athletes jump on sand after taking high jump, what happens? When they come on sand, their momentum will be reduced. Their momentum will be reduced. So therefore, the force with which they are reaching the ground will also reduce. Okay. So in the third example, when a glass vessel falls on hard floor, they break because directly the glass comes into the contact with the surface. It means there is no change in the momentum. Okay, there is no change in the momentum, but there is no change in the velocity of the body. Now, but they do not break when they fall on a carpet. See here, when glass vessels fall from height on the hard floor, they come to rest instantaneously. Okay, so in very short time, they come to rest. So the floor exerts large amount of force on the vessel and it breaks. But if it falls on carpet, what happens? Or sand? The duration of the time in which the vessel come to rest increases, and therefore it exerts less amount of force on the vessel. Okay, and therefore it does not break. So children, here we complete with our third part, second and third part of Newton's laws of motion. So the remaining part we will discuss in the next video. Thank you.